Hello, everybody. This episode is sponsored by Saint Ange Auto Parts. Saint Ange Auto Parts is located next to the Monrepo Credit Union and below the Clear Sky Hotel in Viewfort, very close to the Uptown Liquor Store. They carry the best brands for the best prices. Purchases are cash only. Business hours are Monday to Saturday from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can call in at 454-3030. You want more information. Remember to wear your mask while shopping, and if you go there, let them know we sent you. All right, let's get into it. So I'll just open the floor for Kenty and my mom to just introduce themselves and say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone. So I say, my friend Emmanuel, producer of the films Ribbons of Blue, Troubled Waters, and Nana's Paradise. We are happy to be here with you tonight. I hope that you feel relaxed and you are going to enjoy this beautiful session with us.
All right.
Okay, I'm Kenty. Most of you have probably seen my face in a couple of the films, but I'm glad to be here and glad to participate in this call and to share with, those who are watching, the Iyanola story.
Absolutely. And I'm excited too. I just want us to start off the conversation because a lot of people don't know this, and I know some people might be curious because some people see the films, they don't know a lot about your background. So I wanted to start the conversation with how did you start acting? How did you get into this thing of comedy and acting? How did you get to where people saw you on the screen?
Well, I started acting in my backyard and in my community from the tender age of 6. I would visit the shut-ins, people who were sick and were unable to go out to enjoy themselves or socialize. So I would go to them. I took the task upon myself at that age to go to the people who could not go out to socialize it in society. And I would dance and compose my own songs. I would dance and entertain them. And what really made me happy is just to see a smile on their faces, see them smiling, hearing that laughter ringing in my ears. To me, that was the most enjoyable time. And that's when I started acting, from that age.
Okay. Do you think there was anything that really got you to just take that first step into doing it? Like, what is it? Just your personality, or like what caused you to just get off the bench and start doing that at such a young age?
I guess it was in my blood. I don't know. I just enjoyed watching them laugh. I was always very conscious of people's pains, and I never wanted to see anyone looking sad. So to me, when I went out there and I made them laugh, that would make my day. But I also started earning my daily bread back then too, because I remember I would take a little tin of grapefruit and I would leave when I left home. I would go to those homes because they always wanted to offer me something. They would drop 25 cents in my grapefruit tin. Sometimes they would drop $1. It depends on how the performance went with them. So I would return home knowing that I had earned my pay for the day. But then it was more or less just having fun with people in my community. And that was what really made me happy.
All right. Well, what about you, Kenty?
Yeah, I actually started acting through my mom. And I remember back in the day, we were mostly doing stage productions for small skits at our church and for concerts to, raise funds for, like the Pathfinder Club and other, initiatives that were taking place. And, we would host our own concerts and stuff. And I was pretty young at the time. I believe I was probably 10, 11, if not younger. I got introduced to my friend, and from that time on, we began doing stage productions with her, and then it grew into doing films and these productions and so forth. So it's been a wonderful experience participating, and basically just bringing out a story, through acting. So I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, for me, I have to share mine too. For me,
I was
when
about to
I
ask you.
of course, when I was I remember my very first memory when it comes to acting or drama. I remember I was a little child, and we were at the Derso church, Derso SDA church. And back then, my mom had a group called Vision de la Vie. And I know some people on the line might even remember that group. That group was where it all started. And I can't even remember how old I was, but I just remember, seeing my mom playing a scene. And in this scene, another guy he was playing the part of her husband, right? And I saw the man, and in my little brain as a child, I was like, "That's not my daddy. I don't want, I don't want a new daddy." So I start crying, and some of the people there, they came and they held me, and they held me up, and my mother had to tell me, "Boy, behave yourself, boy, behave yourself," So that was my introduction to acting. I thought I was
You were
going to
pretty
have a
young
new
then.
daddy.
Yeah, you were very young at that time.
So that this has been what I've known my whole life, and I really enjoy it. I've enjoyed the stories that I've seen come from Iyanola Pictures, and it's been a great experience, and I'm excited to talk about it today. Now I know for me, if I were to take away that component of my life, take away all the concerts, take away all the movies, take away all the stories, I would be a very different person, because I think acting kind of opened up my more extroverted side, um, gave me more confidence, and really affected my childhood in that way. I just wanted to know if y'all feel the same, if y'all feel that um, your childhood and even your personality has been changed or influenced by your experience with acting and performing.
Can't you go first?
Yeah, for me, it has certainly, allowed you to be a lot more, I would say, bold. Um, because when you're acting, you basically taking yourself out of yourself and becoming someone else. And so when even in life in general, when you maybe faced with maybe you have to do a presentation or you have to go to a job interview or something that would typically tend to get you nervous, and or you kind of use those little skills to sort of help relax and keep your mind focused. So it has helped in that way. Of course, it comes, with sometimes, you drive by and people see you and they think that that's the real person there. You begin to say, let me see, wait. So those are some of the things you have to deal with. But as a young person growing up, it has certainly helped me and helped me be more confident, in my just my interactions with people at different levels. And so, of course, it always helps when people, when you go somewhere and the people know you. Oh, you the guy from Urban the Blue. That always helps because you already have a foot in the door. So you get those little perks. But other than that, for an individual, I can certainly say that it has helped my personality, helped me become more confident in myself. Do things that you never thought you would do, and do it so that like you on a stage. Sometimes I've played, I've portrayed, or I've played characters where you have to be barefooted, that walking in the dirt, in the mud, that kind of thing. People typically would ask questions about that. One time I had to lie down in a coffin. People look at you. So those kind of things just help you get out of your shell, and help you become more confident. And these are things that young people always need, especially when you're dealing with maybe issues of like low self-confidence and self-esteem, that kind of stuff. You help feel a lot better about yourself. And more than that, the bigger picture is that you're doing something that is impacting someone's life somewhere. And the productions that you do, whether they're on stage or in front of a screen, they live on. You know, the memory
Yeah.
of it lives on. And for
Yeah.
the movies that we've done, I mean, the films are out there, and even up until today, I mean, you know, we did Ribbons of Blue and Tears in the Valley like over 10 years now, and people still talk about it. They watch the film and they still cry. And so
Yeah. Mhm.
just being able to participate in something like that and being able to create and to share a story, you know, to know that you're actually helping someone out there in some time. You know, I mean, look, we're talking about 10, 15 years later, and people are still talking
Yeah.
about these stories.
Mhm.
So that's the kind of thing that that also is beneficial. You know, you get to be part of something that is bigger than yourself. You get to help change lives, because sometimes people tend to think that because they're on the stage, that what they're doing is, you know, they may be shy, whatever. But think about the bigger picture here. You're actually helping tell a story that somebody else
Yeah.
out there, you know, would experience a life-changing moment. And sometimes all they need to see is how you on stage would deal with it, because they themselves
Mhm.
maybe, you know, are dealing with it too. So, you know, at so many different levels, you just help them to change their life.
Yeah.
And so it's great to be part of you know, that kind of opportunity, and to be able to help transform people's lives in that way.
Absolutely.
For me, it was rather strange though, because when I was very young, I was very, very quiet. I considered myself to be an introvert, and most of the people in my community, you know, looked at me as, you know, someone, in fact, who is very quiet. Some people even used to say, "Apa mi ish mamãe, liki ikwa ini style, ipaka pale by moon and whatever." But on the stage, when they met me on stage, I was completely different. So, and when I started teaching at the age of 17, in the classroom, you know, I began to use my acting skills, especially when it came to mathematics. I really up to now don't like maths. Pour moi, maths, c'est comme Chinese et Japanese on the chalkboard. Et que l'on teacher était vraiment allé faire ensemble les bords là. Ça a été trois cas. So when I graduated from Fort Compre, I decided that I would use my skills, you know, in the classroom when I became a teacher, because that's what I really wanted to do, either nursing or teaching. And when I started teaching, I could see the tension in the classroom that the students went through. So what I did, I started using drama. I would tell them, okay, I would actually dress some of the characters, you know, use my props in the classroom. So this is Mr. Tom. Mr. Tom, give him a basket, has 20 mangoes or whatever I would use in the class, 20 mangoes, for example. And he met Miss Jane on the way, and he gave Miss Jane 10 mangoes. And you just, in a minute, you'd have all the children, all of them would be shooting their hands up. It's like mathematics became alive in the classroom when it came to drama, using drama. And it was always fun. And that's what I always wish my teachers could have done in the classroom for me. I knew back then, if that had happened, that I would look at this subject in a totally different area. And I also learned that for children and even for adults, we all learn in different ways. We have our different learning styles. For me, you have to be dramatic. Don't come even in church. I don't want anyone dead person coming to the front there and just reading something from the Bible and telling me Jonah swallowed the whale. And all, or the whale swallowed Jonah. You're talking as it were you know you are on death row. No. I want to know that you are being inspired by what you are going to present to me specifically. I mean, among the people there, I need to know that you are resonating with me well enough, you are touching, you are inspiring me. So for that, I would also, when it comes to that, when I entered my classroom, I always wanted to know that I was meeting the needs of my children in all kinds of ways. Those were very quiet, exceptional students. They didn't have to worry that much. But when it came to the slow learners, to me, we needed to wake them up a bit and help them feel comfortable and happy in the classroom before they gain that concept that you are coming with.
So I found what you said there very interesting, because it sounds like what you've done is you took some of the concepts that you learned from teaching, and then you also took some of the concepts that you have from storytelling and from creating stories, and you merged the two together to empower both sides of the equation, right?
Yeah.
All right. And that's something, I've known you for as long as I've known anything. and that just occurred to me, so I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, there's one thing I wanted to move to and just share with the world, because there's a film. Most people know about Ribbons of Blue. Most people know about Nana's Paradise, Troubled Waters. But there is a film that started the whole thing. A film that, you know, created the path for those things. And it's called Tears in the Valley. And I just wanted to get some of your memories about what the creation of that very first film was like for you.
Well, that came as a surprise because I never knew that I could produce films. I never went to school. I have no formal training. That was rather strange. But I remember receiving a letter from the Substance Abuse Secretariat one afternoon, and I read the letter briefly. And at that point in time, I thought they were actually asking me to produce a film. I don't know where that idea came from, because I know during that period of time, I was busy raising funds for sick people in my community, those who needed to travel overseas for treatments, Martinique, wherever, London, wherever. One of the things I used to do in my community is to just, write a script, a play quickly when they needed my assistance, and just host a concert. And they had seen one of my plays, The White Angel. So I know they were, very happy about what I was doing. So back then, I don't know why I thought it was a film that they wanted, a short film. I immediately started writing the script. I got my actors together. I got Kenty Ramdat, who is right here with us, some of the young people from the church, and we went to Prale, and I started filming. And when Mr. Edwards arrived that one afternoon, I remember him saying, "Oh my God, Mrs. Emmanuel, I didn't know you had taken our request that far, but this is rather amazing." And, my cameraman, Michael Joseph, he was there, filming, and everything was going smoothly. So we continued the story, filming the story. And when it was aired on NCN, oh my goodness, everybody, I received so many calls when that short film was released. It was rather amazing. But Malawesma, when I look at this production right now, it's not, a piece of work that I am proud of, because during that period of time, we didn't have the right cameras, and some of the scenes are blurry, So it's not, I remember a friend of mine, Kuliman, who has, been trying to help us. He asked me for it. That was a request from everyone. They need to see the first movie. But I keep telling people my first real movie is Ribbons of Blue. Tears in the Valley is a beautiful story and people loved it. But I don't know, maybe one day we can ask NTN if they have it, in the archive to play it, because I think they should have a copy.
Do you think you'd ever consider, and just before I say this, I want to shout out to everybody on the live right now. We're so glad to have you guys with us. Make sure to like, share, let your friends know about it. Let your friends know that this is happening so they don't miss it. All right? But what I was about to say is, you think there's ever a possibility that you would actually redo Tears in the Valley since the story was so good?
Yeah, I would be happy to, now that Kenty Ramdat is back on track. And we have so many wonderful actors. St. Lucia, I'm just so proud of our young people. I always keep on saying that we have Lucian Hood. We don't have Hollywood, Nollywood, but we have Lucian Hood. And we should be proud of what we have. I have received so many requests from young women, young men who keep asking me to remember them when we, move to the next production. And it has been a wonderful experience. I am not the only good actress in St. Lucia. No, we are all, I think most of our young people, if they're given that chance, will make us proud. So I don't mind reproducing that film because it was very educational, entertaining, and inspirational as well. So why not?
Right, and I definitely agree, and I think I would say that talent and skill is not in short supply in the Caribbean, you know.
No, 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 not at all.
So uh,
Mhm.
we can absolutely do that. I want to also, I don't know if you guys on the line know, but Kenty was the star actor in Tears in the Valley. And
Yeah.
Kenty, I know that was your very first time ever starring in a film, right? And it was a new experience for a lot of people. Can you tell us a little bit about your story while you were in that?
Yeah, it was a crazy experience, not only before, during, but also after, because I got a lot of death threats. I got la-
What?
I got I got labeled as a guy with AIDS, and I'd be walking the streets in
Oh
Cashew
my
and saying,
goodness.
"As a guy with AIDS, as a guy with
Oh,
AIDS." But it was I mean, like my friend rightly said, it was a first time experience for all of us. I mean, it was the first time that we were actually, being caught on camera. You know what I mean? Um, and so it created this kind of a feeling where sometimes we were acting, but at the same time we were learning how to act. Because
Yeah.
now we're not on a stage. We're in front of a camera. You can't just stare in the camera and talk. You have to factor in all of those things. But in terms of the story itself, it was an interesting story because at the time the story that we were telling, there was a need for it in St. Lucia. I mean, you're talking about St. Lucia being hit, with the AIDS epidemic,
Yeah.
and then the Department of Substance Abuse, reaching out to us, to help tell the story, to young people. And most of the actors in the film, were young people, like myself. I mean, obviously, I was much younger then, but it was a way of young people seeing themselves, you know, not just by way of a story, but seeing also the consequences of what could happen when they participated in, in drugs and alcohol and bad company, and engaged in, all kinds of sexual activity and that kind of stuff. And so, it was on one hand for me, I mean, the story was nice, but it got, like I said, it got scary because I didn't think that people would have taken this thing so seriously, but they did. But the truth is the story. We know this. We know that there were people out there who were impacted by the story,
Yeah.
and that has always been our motivation, to make sure that the stories that we tell, you know, tell the true story
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
what we try to portray, and that people get the message.
Yeah.
If people don't get the message, then what we're doing is basically just for entertainment purposes. But we are more than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a first time experience, and man, there was a lot to learn. I remember this particular scene. We were filming in Prale, and I remember I got so caught up, in that particular scene. And that scene, at that time, I was required to cross the street, right? Cross the street. I think I was
yeah, I remember that scene.
I was high on drugs. I was high on drugs,
Yeah.
and I was
Yeah.
out there now trying to find food and all that kind of stuff. This crazy guy, and I remember crossing the street,
Mhm.
and it didn't occur to me that I should have looked left to right. Of course, I was a crazy guy. So what do crazy
Yeah.
people do? And the funny thing about
Mhm.
the funny thing is, man, a vehicle was coming. There was an oncoming vehicle, and I was
Yeah.
just when I crossed the street, I looked back and I was like, wait, what just happened? you know? So that's some of that. And then as well, I remember
Yeah.
having to lie down in a coffin, for the first time.
Mhm.
The interesting thing about
Mhm.
that coffin story is we had a vehicle to transport the coffin from Viewfort all the way to Prairie. And I remember in particular that day, right? Not a single vehicle wanted to be behind that van. They just refused to be. They gave it, all the you know. And it was interesting because now I found myself having to lie down in a coffin and get film and everything. So it was interesting because people were like, in St. Lucia we have this thing about coffin and all that kind of stuff. But it was an interesting scene, just to be able to, go in there. And people are asking me, people were asking, did you really die? What happened? Did you really get
Did
AIDS?
you die? Are you hurt? Did you die?
Did you really die and you're alive?
Yeah. But we were happy to participate and to share the story. I mean, it came to us in that way,
Yeah.
and it was our first introduction to the world of filming. And we did our best. We learned a whole lot, and then we continued from there.
Absolutely. Now, Murray, I know in that episode you were not episode, but in that film you were playing Kenty's I can't remember his name in Tears in the Valley, but you were playing his mother in that film. And I know, because of the plot and because of, what happened to him, I know you had to really connect to the role. How do you remember your experience when you were both trying to direct and also connect into that character?
Playing the role as his mother was just natural because, as I keep saying, the minute you have to portray or become or get into character, you must have, if you have that experience, for example, of being a mother, it becomes natural. Watching your son going through that kind of experience is no easy task for a mother. And so what I would do is internalize that whole pain, that emotional trauma of just watching my son go through that mental, all those mental issues. I mean, he had a good job, and, just watching him, go through all of that. When you tell me how I handled, I mean, being that mother, and being the director as well, it was like just switching from one to the next and doing that as quickly as I could. But then I would feel the pain watching him as my son and working with him, on cast, while through acting. And at the same time, directing and ensuring that people get the story in the same way that it should, and it has that kind of effect on them. That was of prime importance to me at the time.
All right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder how you carried, because this was Tears in the Valley, but then Tears in the Valley led us into Ribbons of Blue now. And I know a lot more people watching this can relate to Ribbons of Blue. If you haven't seen it, you can see it right now at www.iyanolapictures.com. But how did you take those lessons that you learned from Tears in the Valley? And what were those lessons that you learned from Tears in the Valley that you then took into Ribbons of Blue?
One of the main lessons that I transported, let's put it that way, is ensuring that whilst you work with young people, you make them feel important, you listen to them, and at the same time, you ensure that that platform that you are on is not one where you are too demanding. And even if you have to be, you have to know how to present it to them, how to speak, how to relate, how to enjoy the experience, and at the same time, help them understand that this is not a joke going on, that we have a story, that which is very important, one which will save lives. And as, not just Christians, as community folks, we have to ensure that whatever we do it well. And we take that kind of responsibility, that we're not just there to have fun, whilst I want to ensure that we are having fun. Because if we're not having fun, then I don't think we can manage to, work together. Young people will not be there with you if you're, your personality must be one that's engaging, one they want to be with you. If they don't want to be with you, you might not get them the next time you need them. So it must be an open forum, a place where people are inspired, a place where they want to be, a place where they want to engage and help you produce your story. It must be one that will inspire not just you, but them. And in turn, they know that they will be inspiring others by it.
Yeah, you saying this, you remind me of the experience. I remember when Ribbons of Blue was being filmed, people would, and this is the same thing throughout all the films. Everybody would look forward to going there because it was a fun place to be. We had a lot of fun on set. you know, um, and that actually makes me think about the whole approach to creating these stories, right? You haven't always been big on script writing. And I think it's very powerful how you still bring out the stories in a not very traditional way. Some people uh, probably could not bring forward a film with no or not a very detailed script, you know? So can you tell us a little bit about your whole process with doing that?
It's one of the things I often ask myself. I've traveled tremendously. I've been interviewed. I've gone to Oxford University. I remember Ribbons of Blue was the only movie screened twice at Oxford University. And they had the Harder They Come from Jamaica. Um, they had a film from the USA, the civil rights movement. And after Ribbons of Blue was screened twice, I remember journalists walked up to me and asked me, how do you go about producing your films, write the scripts and everything? And who is your manager? Who is your manager? And I stood there for a minute because I was not expecting that question. And I just pointed to heaven and I said, that's where my manager is. Because again, when it comes to script writing, I had never really written a proper script. So I know whatever I have done has come through inspiration, because nobody wants to believe me up to this point. No one wants to believe. In fact, when I was interviewed in Trinidad by Mr. Paddington, who is a professor in that theater arts field, and we were on our way to be interviewed by, Gael TV, and by one of the reporters there, because they told me some of the young men from one of the colleges had come to tell them that they had seen a movie that cracked their nuts. And when they met me, the journalist was just crying and whatever. Oh, that experience, that has been frequent. But everywhere you go, people are crying. And when they ask you the question, sometimes they take you by surprise. So when he asked me, Mr. Paddington, coming back to him, Mr. Emmanuel, how long does it take you to produce a film? And your script writing and whatever. I remember, I just fell into a mode of silence. I did not want to respond to that, because everywhere I had gone before, people refused to listen. They refused to accept the fact that I actually did that. Ribbons of Blue had come, as Kent is there, he can testify to that. You were there. It was just a matter of saying to my actors, okay, this is what we are going to do today. I come in with the props and everything. Okay, I am your mother, okay? And you're my daughter. Monday, Monday, now in a situation like this, you are my daughter, and I am very poor and whatever, and I want you to relate the same way you'd have, related to me if you were a bad girl, and that kind of thing. And would sit, she would laugh, and then I would sit there and I would tell her, okay, Brother Mike is getting ready, action, let's roll it. And we'll do it once and twice, and it would happen over and over and over again. I can remember my young actors when we produced Nana's Paradise. Remember, Keddy? Once one of them walked up to me and she said, Miss Maffrin, how comes you crying so fast? I can't cry so fast, huh? How are you doing it? And those young children, I know that no one would want to believe that those little girls didn't have any script. It's just how great I believe our young people can be if we work well with them. None of them had a script. We went through Nana's Paradise without a script. We went through Ribbons of Blue without a script. Tears in the Valley, well, we'd have that little paper, that little sheet of paper once, checking here and there. And well, Shanta's World now, Keddy, when it comes to the script now, I remember Drenia Frederick, after I won the competition, we had to pitch that
what
concept.
Competition was that? What competition?
Yeah, well, there was a competition in St. Lucia in, was it 2014? And they invited all producers, professionals were invited to pitch a concept about a film that they would want to produce in St. Lucia. And we were told that the person who wins will receive a form of financial assistance. I was reluctant at first.
Hold on, I just want to, because I know some people watching might actually be interested in actually participating in that competition. Is that something that's still running monthly or every year? Okay, no, it's just a one-time thing?
No, it was a one-time thing.
Okay.
I was reluctant because at the time I had my concept because I had traveled within the Caribbean region and I had visited some of the libraries. I had held 22 screenings, visited the elementary schools, the secondary schools, colleges. We had screened Troubled Waters, Nana's Paradise, Ribbons of Blue, and the children were just so excited about those movies. But something struck me as, one of our primary needs in the Caribbean when it comes to educating our young people. I kept thinking at the time when I left St. Vincent that we're missing our past. We are missing our history. Because when I visited the libraries, I didn't see any novel that I could just pull and just pick up, and just sit and read about what transpired during those days, post-colonial times and whatever. And that's how the concept of Shante came into play. When I was on Leah traveling back to St. Lucia, I said to myself, if I have to film another movie, it will be something of that sort. So when I heard about the competition, Nadia was the one who kept on, begging me to, participate. At the time, I wasn't quite ready. So I said, I don't want to sell out my concept and then I don't have what it takes to, start working on it. But when I went, most of the producers did the best. They pitched. They did very well, but I won. And then I remember Drenia Frederick, who works with CDF. She told me at a meeting, she told me, Mafrin, you know what? You have said time after time that you produce movies without a script. This time, put your butt down and write a script. She took me by surprise and I wasn't upset. I just looked at Drenia and I smiled. And I said, Gouin coûte piti, piti coûte gouin. And as I arrived home, I started reading, Google search, reading about script. I started reading, samples of scripts, or the seasoned producers have, written. And I started writing Shanti's World.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the CDF there. Just for the folks on the line or anybody watching right now, the CDF is the Cultural Development Foundation, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So first off, again, I want to talk to the people watching this right now. If you have any questions, now is the time to send in your questions. We are answering questions. We are monitoring the comments. So just send in any questions that you have. If you want to talk to us, just let us know. We're right here and we're available to you. All right. Now, Kenty, in Ribbons of Blue, you have a role that was a little tough, in my opinion, because I played a similar role this past Christmas, and you were Mandy's fiance, right? And you in the film you broke up with Mandy for a very particular reason. I kind of want to know how you managed in that scene to be both caring and sympathetic, but also unforgiving in that you had to just break off the relationship.
We're breaking up.
Well, the first thing is that I was required to be that way based on the story.
You want to make that clear.
But it's something that happens, in relationships. I think, in a general sense. The story was one of the things for Romanus in that story, which was of course me, is that he was very close to his own mom, and his mom had sacrificed, along the same lines as Mandy's mom. My mom used to sell icicles. Her mom, obviously, I found out later on, after the whole thing blew up, what, she sold charcoal and what have you. So we had similar backgrounds. And so I think my character, I was very open about that. This is me, and in relationships, I think, it's important that people understand the importance of being transparent. You get my point?
Yeah.
And so being able to share, and guess what? We were at medical school. Who cares whether what your background was? We are medical school. I mean, come on, we're changing our future. We're not selling icicles or selling charcoal. You get my point?
Anymore.
And so then in one sense, you understand that you were ashamed, and at the same time, you have the other thing too is she was also pregnant. You get my point?
Yeah.
And I wish we could have a sequel to that story, because the story needs to continue,
Ruins of Blue Part 2?
Yeah, to show what happened,
So many people are asking for that.
Yeah, to show what happened after the ribbons came off that tree, you know what I mean? So on one hand, there was this, compassion, because, hey, you now have a greater responsibility in the relationship because she's pregnant. On the other hand, you're disappointed because all along you've been, going through this relationship with the understanding that, hey, we're in this together. We're both at medical school looking out for each other. This is me. This is my background. And, you obviously you come to telling a different story about who you really are. And so, that's where, the compassion ends, and to say, hey, you know what? I don't think that it's going to work out for us. And again, that's why I said the story ended there. But I think in terms of in the Caribbean context, right? That's what happens. We have a lot of broken relationships in the Caribbean. We have a lot of relationships, single parent relationships. Things don't always go right. Things fall apart along the way. But what happens after? A lot of parents, like in Mandy's case, she was pursuing a career. And here she is now in a situation where her boyfriend, fiance, broke up with her, and she can't continue because she's a total wreck, and she never got to finish medical school. She had to return home for her mom to help her out, the same person that she rejected, all along.
Right.
And so these are themes that, like I said earlier, that are real in our day-to-day lives. And so for Romanus, having to play that kind of a balancing act where you have to be compassionate, understanding, and at the same time you have to be upfront with your feelings. You know what I mean? And so, I guess, like I said, we had similar backgrounds, but I was upfront. I shared where I came from, my mother, what she did, and then here you are pretending to be someone else. For what purpose? You get my point? It was a very disappointing scene. I know a lot of people, and
I think a lot of people were celebrating in that scene, though.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, But again, the important,
the
important thing there, guys, is that in our day-to-day relationships, we have a lot of brokenness in people, and there's a reason why Mandy behaved that way. A lot of people are like that. A lot of our people are like that. They pretend to be something that they're not, just because they want to keep the man. They want to keep the man. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, it still works out to their disadvantage. And so, again, a lesson about relationships right there in that scene. Very important one.
Yeah. I agree with that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
man.
right on point.
Now, somebody wants to know when she came back from. Hey, Faye, I see Faye Caroline send us a comment there. She says she wants to know what happened when Mandy came back from England. I guess we're talking about the sequel,
Yeah, she'll find out later.
I think Mandy was in the calls, Yeah. I think that's where some
They
people
will have
wanted
to end
Mandy
up.
to end up.
Yeah, she'll have to end up, working with the girls.
People don't
Yeah,
like Mandy at all.
helping her mother. Yeah.
But I mean, I
So she
think
can
towards
learn
the
about the
end,
hard life.
yeah, of course.
Hmm.
I think towards the end, Mandy kind of learned her lesson, though. You know,
Yeah.
for sure.
That's
Kenty,
why
now,
I cannot really produce a part two.
yeah.
Because if she learns a lesson, that means she'll be a good girl. There's not much to learn there now, apart from the fact that she realizes that her mom is more important than, material things and whatever.
Well, here's an interesting twist, right? Here's an interesting twist. People get second chances.
Yeah.
Another love
Mm-hmm.
story, People get second
Yeah.
chances.
Mm-hmm.
Kenty, there's another question I wanted to ask you too, because in 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 Ribbons of Blue as well, you also had a Jamaican accent because you were Jamaican
Oh,
in that film.
yeah, that one was a difficult one.
So so
But yes, can we repeat?
so what did you do to try to get that Jamaican accent?
Well, boy, I tell you, that's back in the day. YouTube was still around. YouTube was already around. You just, you go online and you listen to some of the Jamaican guys. You listen to some of the Jamaican accent and you practice. You just play around. One of the things about acting is off screen. There's so much preparation that has to be done, and
Yeah.
sometimes that preparation happens even in your sleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you just well, like what I would do is there are certain lines that I had to say, and I would just try to rehearse those lines using the Jamaican accent. And again, you go online and you listen to the Jamaican speak, you try to adopt that same kind of thing, and that's what acting is all about. Like I said, taking yourself to a place where and up until this day, I know. Yeah, man. You were Jamaican man. Why, man? Why you lie to me, man? Why you lie to me? I still have a little thing or two. So yeah, it takes a little practice.
All right, all right. Well, I agree with you that it definitely does take some preparation. And Mami, when you mentioned uh the person in Nana's Paradise asking you how you cried so quickly, I remember there was a scene in Nana's Paradise where I was supposed to cry, and
Yeah.
those tears took forever that day.
We got it.
That day the floodgates would not open. Huh? Trust me. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things, that happen behind the scenes. And guys on the line, we just want to share with y'all. We just want to be more transparent with y'all and just kind of open the doors and let y'all know a little bit more about the Iyanola story. Like, this is your chance to ask your question. So if you haven't asked your question yet, hop in the comments and let us know. So the next thing I want to ask you about, Kenty, and I know this might not be your favorite question, so brace yourself.
Okay, man. Okay, man.
Jamaican.
Troubled Waters, right? Troubled Waters was the film after Ribbons of Blue.
Oh boy.
Um, in Troubled Waters, you play a stepfather. That's you,
Mm-hmm.
a stepfather, right?
Yeah.
You play a stepfather who sexually assaults his stepdaughter.
You say that
Now,
differently,
huh?
I think you say
Sexual
that differently,
abuse. I don't know. I don't know the right way to say it, but he
It's
did some
okay.
bad stuff.
It's
You
okay. Go
know.
right ahead. It wasn't me though.
Yeah, it wasn't you. It was the role. So I just want to know when you play in a role like that of playing
Yeah.
somebody who is a terrible person like that. How how
Hmm.
is how is that done? How do you bring yourself into that character? How do you navigate, those emotions and that kind of thing?
Yeah, that was a tough one. Actually, I remember vividly when my friend told me that she was, that I would have to play, that she was assigning me, that role. I remember going online and reading, doing a lot of research into the psychology, of a child molester, just to understand some of the things that occurs, leading up to that kind of activity or that kind of a behavior. So, because it obviously this is not something that you do, that you portrays for me was the first time. I had to now learn to be the bad guy. And so I read a lot about behavioral patterns, things that like a child molester would do, like give gifts, and like appear to be overly friendly. I'm not suggesting that anybody who gives gifts to your child or appears that way. I'm just saying that's what I read, and that's what I sort of had to do to bring out the character in that particular film. So so being overly charitable, welcoming, but at the same time very wanting to be with the child privately, a lot, wanting the parent or the parents to be away, and sort of convincing the parent that they are responsible enough to take care of, stuff like that alone. I mean, here you are as a parent in a stranger's house with your kid, and you're already convinced that he's okay, that kind of thing. So I sort of had, for moments, whilst we were filming, I had to be reminding myself of these things so that I can, will play out in the different scenes. For example, there's a scene where Mr. Everton has, this little toy, and he calls what's it name, Risa, calls Risa and says, "Hey, look what I got for you." And he has this little toy with this little man, who plays a little jingle, and he drops his pants, and he goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." That's a way of playing into the child's mind, try to tell the child, "Hey, if my pants drop, it's okay, don't be afraid, it's just a little game." Yes, exactly. It's a little game. And these are things, that happens, in real life. And in many cases, it happens even worse than that. You get my point? But again, the whole idea behind what we were doing is to tell a story. And the story is not just about showing what can happen, but also educating people about certain things, certain ills and evils that are out there in the society that they should be mindful of and guard against.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, these things are out there, and in many circles, we don't talk about it. When it happens, we sort of push it under the rug, and everybody just somehow continue living life as normal. At least it appears that way. But deep down inside, people are dealing with brokenness. People are dealing with other issues, that would later on manifest itself. It is something that, people be like, "Well, I didn't know you could do that." Well, yeah, because I've been harboring something that's really dark inside here, and all of a sudden I can't hold it no more. So I do something crazy, So that's how some of those things play out. And again, like I said, the great part of what we do is to educate people about certain social rules and stuff like that. So it was a very difficult part for me, because it was, no longer along the lines of a relationship, but I literally had to put on the mind of a bad man. Do you understand what I mean? A bad man in the sense that somebody who's just out to get, get a kid. I remember this scene, where Mr. Everton is like, he's opening the door, like he just cracked the door a little open, and he sees big bulging eyes, staring at the little child, staring at the camera, and he's about to do something evil, I mean, if I was watching Mr. Everton, I'd probably throw a stone at the television, Mr. Everton was just a bad man. So yeah, so it was a difficult scene in that sense, but we had to tell the story. That was that was the objective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Troubled Waters was released at a moment in time when, this was before the whole Me Too movement, and when sexual abuse and sexual assault was really in the face of the public eye. So Mrs. Emmanuel, how would you, what would you say brought you to the point that you would want to share a story like that with the world, way back when it wasn't really it was kind of a taboo topic, it wasn't really something that was in the public discourse?
Well, what really inspired me back then was the news. I had just returned from the United States, and I was reading a newspaper, and at that point in time, I think it was a few days before I read that paper, a young girl had been raped and killed somewhere in Choiseul. And I got so angry. I was so upset. Emotionally, I could just identify with the mother, that child's mother, losing your child. And the child was killed, not just molested, The child was raped and murdered. And I said, I don't have what it takes. I can develop a story. I know I can do that easily. I may not have the finance to do it, but it could take whatever. I said, as a teacher, I am going to put a story together so that the parents can understand how careful they have to be with little girls, and especially now little boys as well, when it comes to those pedophiles. When you are in a relationship with a man, you have to act, and you have kids, you have to ensure that you understand who you are taking into your child's life. And you should never be naive. You understand? I remember I was in the kitchen once with you, Keddy, and I told you, I don't know if you can remember that, but I remember telling you that I have not watched that movie twice. After it was produced, I never took time to sit and watch it, because every time I did, I would get upset. And I remember you were leaning, against the wall in the kitchen, and you looked at me, and for a minute you said, "Mommy, you should not be so upset. This is a film that will save lives, and it will save many children's lives." I can never forget it. And when you said that, I felt a little better, that, maybe it would help, instead of bring out the anger that I was feeling, and I wanted the men out there to feel, and the pain I also felt when I identified with that child's mother. When you put it that way, and you told me, "Mommy, that can be a tool that can help young girls. It can save their lives," I began to see troubled waters in a different light. And as Kenty just said, whenever, when it comes to Iyanola pictures, whatever stories we tell, they must inspire someone not to do or create or get involved in some evil act, or some evil, or some societal ill that is, going to destroy the lives of our people. So our stories are entertaining. Yes, they can be entertaining. So I remember on Saturday, many people were watching Troubled Waters, and they said they are crying, they cannot take it, they cannot, they were just emotional. That's what we want to bring out. We want you to feel that pain, so that you can understand that when you act in that way, you are actually destroying somebody's life. You are actually bringing on some measure of pain to a soul, to a mother, a father, a child. So when they said that they were crying, yes, I felt sorry too, because I was watching the film and I knew how and why I produced it. But at the same time, I wanted you to cry. I wanted you to bring out all those emotions. I wanted you to get angry, because these are the things that affect our families' lives in St. Lucia, in the Caribbean, and all around the world.
Absolutely. Now, we're quickly running out of time. I wish we could talk a little bit longer. But I have one last question that I just want to slide in before we run out of time. If you could go back today, like if I could just take you with me, take you, Kenty, and just all of us could just go back in time to the end of production of Tears in the Valley, what would you tell yourself that would make things better or easier or encourage you for the films that came after Tears in the Valley?
I think for me, I would say up until Tears in the Valley, we were just having fun. You know what I mean? Just having fun, doing something that we love to do. At that point in time, we were not into like the whole movie thing yet. So we didn't quite understand the impact of video. We were just into a story and acting. But I think if there's one thing that I can take from that that I can say is that I wish we had started video productions earlier, you know, because it has done so much, it has changed so many people's lives um, in a way that we just couldn't do on stage. You know, being able to tell a story, you know, on screen, I think is just such a compelling way to change people's lives. And so I would say, I wish we had started earlier.
That's a very good take. What about you?
For me, one of the things I have learned is that I remember after traveling, to several islands, and being interviewed by reporters, and, whatever, they would ask me, what about the financial aspect of things? And I would always say the same thing. It's not about the money. It's about the stories that we tell. And I remember a reporter who worked with Gael told me, no, Mr. Emmanuel, you cannot handle things like that. If God gave you a gift, you must have the finance. You must have the money. It should be about the money. And I said to him, what's wrong with you all? Everything is not about money. It's about inspiring kids, inspiring families. And then he said something to me that I now understand. He said, well, as a producer, I realized you are gifted. Your government, they should just capture this thing because this is inspirational. This is good. This is great. If you're in Trinidad, things would have gone better for you. You need the money to produce and whatever. And I said, don't worry, the minute the stories are out, he told me, I want you to remember that. To tell the stories, you need the money. And you should work things out in a way that you have the financial base, a strong financial base, to ensure that you continue to produce the films. And I wish back then, like Kenty said, it was not just about producing the videos, but we had established that financial base in a constructive way, so that right now we would not be asking people for help here and there and whatever. I am actually getting really tired of doing that, walking up those stairs, begging here and begging there. I wish I had handled it back then in a more constructive way financially.
Okay. Well, folks, this has been Family Reflections, the Iyanola story. Thank you so much for joining us virtually. We'll be here twice a month for a long time. so we hope to see you guys again in 2 weeks. Have a good one. Thanks for joining us.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks for watching.